Hi, my name is Cleo, and I have 2 children with my husband. My son is 8 years old, and my daughter is 6.5. They're great kids. They're thoughtful, kind, and hardworking, just as I brought them up to be. Timothy is a budding football player, and Sophia is learning her way around a chessboard faster than I ever thought possible. They never caused any real trouble, and though they fought sometimes, as children will always do, I never had too much trouble with them. Which is why what my mother-in-law and husband did to them shocked me to my core. I run an online self-help website that gained popularity suddenly. I was invited to Berlin to give a speech, and because my husband couldn't take the time off of work, we had to invite his mother to stay at the house and watch over the children. I was to be away for a week, and I promised to call them every night. The first night I called, nothing seemed amiss. They looked a little tired, but before I scolded them, I remembered what my own grandmother was like. All play and no sleep, sweets for dinner and late-night movies. I thought that they were going to be having a great time bonding with their grandma. They certainly didn't complain about anything, so I thought nothing of it. Are you guys having a good time?
Yes, Mom.
What are you getting up to?
We've been in the garden today, and tomorrow too because of the snow.
Snow. Oh, that's exciting. Make a snowman to welcome Mommy home.
Yes, Mom.
The next day, I saw in the news that the snow back home had fallen much heavier than expected. School was closed, and most companies asked their employees to work from home. I called home straight away and saw my husband lounging in the kitchen with a cup of coffee. Did your work cancel?
Yeah. They said that the snow affected their systems, and if we can't access the servers, we can't work. I'm not complaining.
And the kids? Are their schools closed?
Yeah.
Well, I might as well talk with them if they're around. Call them in.
They're in the garden right now.
Oh, playing in the snow. Don't let them stay out too long. They'll catch their death out there.
Don't be stupid, Cleo. They're children, not kittens. They're hardier than that.
I was so surprised by his sudden anger that I simply accepted it and moved on. But I couldn't stop thinking about it all through the day. I was busy too, and needed to be on the top of my game, but I had the most uncomfortable feeling in my gut. I knew that something was off. I just didn't know what. I called later that night, and I saw my children again. Hi guys, how are you doing? Did you have fun in the snow? Immediately, Sophia starts to cry, and Timothy looks close to following suit. Oh no, guys. What's wrong? Did someone knock down your snowman?
We weren't allowed to play in the snow.
But your dad said you were outside earlier. What were you doing?
Grandma made us shovel all the snow out. Our hands are all covered in blisters. We're tired, Mommy. Please come home.
My heart broken. My children were hurting and scared. Put Daddy on the phone. I could not express just how angry I was that my poor children had been forced to work during such severe weather conditions. More so that my husbands hadn't thought to step in and explain that we don't expect our children to do dangerous jobs.
Hey, babe.
Don't you hey babies me. Do you know what our children just told me? Where have you been all day that your mother could have them out working their hands to blisters in the snow?
Didn't realize they were being so whiny.
Whiny? They were hurt. You should have stopped her.
Why? It helps build character.
They're children. They don't need to build character like that. They need to be cared for and talked to.
You're coddling them. They're not babies anymore. They have to earn their keep.
Are you crazy?
In the olden days, children their age would have become apprentices. They will work hard, and they were happy for the opportunity.
We're not in the olden days. We're in the modern age, where we don't die at 30 and children have the opportunity to properly grow. Don't you dare make those kids work another second. I'm coming home. The absolute gall of the man to think he can hurt my babies like that. By the time I got home, I had riled myself up into a rage. And to make matters worse, I found my 2 darlings in the kitchen, scrubbing the floor, dark circles around their eyes and trembling.
Mommy.
My children ran into my arms, knocking over a bucket of water on their way.
You filthy creatures, how dare you? Oh, Cleo, darling, welcome back.
Timothy, Sophia, go upstairs, okay? Take a nap.
You'll make them lazy if you keep treating them like that.
I don't care much for your parents' style, and you can be sure that I'll never be inviting you back to be around my children. It was like talking to a wall, because she had no change in expression. I thought that maybe she had lost her mind or something.
I'm afraid that's not acceptable, Cleo.
I didn't ask for your opinion. I gave you a fact, though. Get out of my house.
What is going on here?
Thank goodness, son, your wife has completely gone crazy. She's screaming and shouting and telling me how to raise children, as if she knows more than I do. Honestly, you need to put her in her place.
Cleo, please talk to my mother with more respect. She has much more experience than you, and you should be pleased that she'd offer her motherly skills to our children.
I will not be pleased that she forced our children to do jobs that even adults find difficult. And I can't believe you'd go along with it, especially after I told you my opinion.
Don't talk to me like that in my own house. How dare you?
How dare I? How dare you insinuate that either of us has more power in this household than the other?
You people these days, you have no respect, no understanding of how the world works. Men are the heads of the house, and if my son says your children are old enough to go out and work, then you should listen to him. That is your role and a dutiful wife.
Dutiful wife? Is that what you've reduced me to? I was waiting for my husband to tell me no, to promise that he holds me in a much higher regard, but it quickly became apparent that wasn't the case. You are an idiot.
Don't talk to me like that. I am your husband.
Not for much longer.
You don't get to make that decision.
See, that's where you're wrong. I am the exact person to be making that decision, because I am the person who brings in the most money.
You promised that you'd never use that against me.
And you promised that everyone in this house was equal. You broke your promise first.
You're so flaky. No sense of commitment. In my day...
Newsflash, your day is over. We're in my day now, and in my day, I care about the well-being of my children far more than I care about your opinion. What you had them doing borders on abuse, and if you want to avoid prison time, I suggest you get out of my house right now. They looked at each other as if checking to see who was going to fight back, but I think my husband realized first what was happening.
I'll fight you in court.
And you will lose. Goodbye. We did indeed end up in court, and as I predicted, the case went in my favor. I walked away with full custody, the house, and 70% of our life savings. My husband moved back in with his domineering mother and was made to do work around the house and his regular job on top of that, all the while being reminded of his failings when his mother berates him for being such a layabout that he has to live with his mother. He sometimes visits to see his children and often looks tired and miserable. Thanks for watching. Please like the video so it can be recommended to others to watch. Hi, my name is Camilla, and I want to share with you the tale of how my father-in-law nearly forced me to get violent. But I'm getting ahead of myself. It all started back when my husband John came home extremely upset.
Hey, honey, I have some terrible news. My mom kicked my dad out of the house.
She did what? But why?
Honestly, I have no idea. She wouldn't say over the phone, but I'm really worried about him. He hasn't lived on his own for a really long time, and I don't think that he'll be able to survive.
Sadly, I had to agree with John. I had known his father-in-law for many years, and I knew that he was practically useless. The man couldn't even boil water without being told what to do. What made matters worse was that we never got along. He would always make comments about how I cooked or cleaned, and I had always tried my best to ignore him, which was why I was so shocked by what my husband asked next.
So, listen, I know that you wouldn't be thrilled by what I'm going to ask, but, do you think my father could come and live with us for a bit? At least until he can find himself a place of his own that he can afford?
Are you kidding me? Do you expect me to put up with his chauvinistic comments every day?
Please, honey. I know that he's a lot to take, but he has nowhere else to go, and I don't want him to live on the street.
I really didn't want to say yes, but I could tell that my husband desperately wanted to help his father. He knew that his father and I had never gotten along, and he was torn between wanting to be a good son and keeping the peace.
It would only be a month, maybe 2, just until we can find him something more permanent.
Against my better judgment, I agreed, and a few days later my father-in-law moved into our spare bedroom. While I knew that it would be a challenge for me to have him in the house, I was more worried about his influence on my sons. John's father, Frank, was quite a stubborn and pig-headed person. He often said inappropriate things, and I didn't want my sons to learn such behavior from him. I had no doubt that my mother-in-law had kicked him out because she had finally grown tired of his verbal abuse, but I didn't say anything as I didn't want to upset John.
So what are you making for dinner, Camilla? Actually, I'm cooking a meatloaf for dinner tonight, Dad. You? But that's a woman's job. Don't tell me that you're going soft on me, John.
No, Frank. John and I just take turns making dinner. It's what most normal people do these days.
Well, back in my day, women knew their place and kept their husbands fed.
I bit my tongue and tried to ignore him. He was constantly saying such things, and I knew that he wasn't going to change on my account. John later came and apologized for his father's words, but it didn't matter. My husband hadn't said anything wrong, and so he had no need to apologize. Frank, on the other hand, didn't think that he had said anything wrong and didn't care if he upset anyone. Over the course of the next week, Frank left messes all over the house. There were constantly empty glasses and plates left out everywhere, along with rotting, half-eaten food. I tried to talk to him about cleaning up after himself, but he just brushed me aside. Frank, this place is starting to smell terrible. Can you please clean up after yourself?
Why should I? As the woman, that's your job. If you didn't spend so much time watching soap operas and playing on your phone, then this place wouldn't be such a mess. Why did my son have to marry someone so damn lazy?
All I could do was bite my tongue and walk away, as I knew that I wouldn't be able to say anything that would make him behave better. I was counting down the days until he finally left, although it was beginning to get harder and harder to ignore him, especially since he had started smoking inside the house. I had asked him more than once to not do so, but he kept doing it. As bad as the mess he made in the rest of the house, his room was even worse. He would leave dirty magazines and half-eaten food in piles all around on the floor. I was worried that my sons would go in there and see all of this. Frank, you need to at least keep your own room clean. And these kinds of magazines should not be left out where my young sons can see them. I don't want them exposed to such things.
It's my room, and I can do what I want. If it bothers you so much, then do your job and clean my room.
Frank, it's not just the garbage, though. Your smoking is making the whole house smell terrible. And it isn't good for my sons to be inhaling that smoke. Can you please go outside to smoke from now on? Frank grumbled something under his breath, but I just assumed that he had decided to ignore me. Later that day, though, things got so much worse. I was starting to make dinner when I heard a commotion. Running as quickly as I could to the living room, I found Frank holding my eldest son by the wrist.
You will speak to me with respect, boy.
What are you doing? Let go of him.
No, he was talking back to me, and unlike you, I won't stand for it.
I didn't do anything. All I said was that it smelled bad in here.
Enough. Let him go right now. I stomped into the middle of the living room and was about to strike my father-in-law when he let my son go. Once he was free, he ran away to hide in his room.
Why did you do that? How is he supposed to become a man like me if he never learns to respect his elders? If you don't discipline him, then he'll turn into a lazy idiot like you.
Frank, I'm warning you. Do not touch my children again or I will make you regret it.
And what is a small, pathetic woman like you going to do about it?
Trust me, Frank, you don't want to know. I glared at him and just walked away to check on my son. He was okay, but a bit shaken up. That night when my husband got home, we had a long talk about what had happened. John, we need to talk. Your father was hurting our son, and he's turning the house into a pigsty. Please tell me that he will be leaving soon.
I know, I've had more than a few arguments with him myself. He promised me that he would be leaving soon, although every time that I suggest a retirement home, he keeps turning them down.
That was all that I needed to hear. It was at that moment that I knew what I needed to do. And so, I went onto my computer and did some research and waited for just the right moment. Unfortunately, I didn't have to wait long. Weeks later, I was tidying upstairs when I heard yelling. Taking a deep breath, I rushed downstairs and into the living room. My son was lying on the ground crying. His face was all red and had a large welt on it where Frank had struck him. Did you hit my son?
I told you that he needed to be disciplined. If you and John won't do it, then I will.
I warned you, Frank. A smug smile spread across Frank's face, but it was quickly chased away as I slapped him. Unfortunately, this only made Frank angrier, and he tried to slap me back, but before he could make contact with me. I quickly punched him in the chin, sending him into a daze, and then grabbed his arm and flipped him over and pinned him with his arm pulled behind his back. What Frank didn't know was that I had taken karate my entire life, and even though I was shorter and smaller than him, I easily overpowered him. Frank, I need you to relax, or I will break your arm. My son ran out of the room as I slowly let Frank stand up. Frank, I need you to listen to me. John and I have been very patient with you, but you've crossed the line today.
Do you think I'm going to let you get away with hitting me like that?
And what are you going to do? Are you going to tell people that a little woman beat you up? I stepped forwards and tried to make myself appear intimidating. Thankfully, his wounded chin made him, which caused him to step backwards. As he did, he fell into a chair. I knew that he wouldn't tell anyone, as it would hurt his pride too much to say that a smaller woman had beat him up. Frank, I found a retirement home that will take you, and you are going to move into it. I don't care if you like the place or not. Do you understand? Frank slowly nodded and almost began to whimper as I stood and glared at him until my husband came home. When he did, I asked if he would escort Frank to the retirement home that I found for him. As soon as he left, I went and comforted my son and promised him that it would never happen again. Once my husband came back from the home, he apologized profusely, but I knew that he wasn't at fault. He was merely trying to be a good son. He had no way of knowing just how bad his father would be. The research that I had done involved looking for the worst of the retirement homes in the area. I had purposefully chosen a place that had a terrible record, and I knew that he would hate it there, but I didn't care. As far as I was concerned, he had brought this on himself. As for us, once he was gone, our family life returned to normal, although it took our sons some time to feel entirely comfortable. And it took me a long time to finally get the house completely clean. Thanks for watching.